Mr. Fry. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we are going to get started. We're going to have our board reports. We do have a speaker here, Mark Woodward, and he's going to tell us all about what we need to know about drugs. Well, not all we need to know about drugs.
Right.
How to stay safe in our neighborhoods and avoid them. So did not mean to give that kind of lead up, but that's what you're looking for. I'm going to go ahead and do the president's report, and then we will have our treasurer and secretary's reports, and we'll get into committee. So as I pull my notes up on my phone, I'm usually a person that just does paper, and this is weird for me trying to get into the 21st century, so we'll see. Yay! Hi. It's nice not being the youngest person here, so it's great to see new people as they keep it going. So some of you have received postcards in the mail. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but there have been some postcards going around with some city ordinances saying that your house may not be up to code. Those were not from us. They were made to seem sort of possibly making you think that it was from the neighborhood association, but they were not. I was actually in the airport flying out to California, and I get a very irate call from someone who's asking what this is and why do they have this. And I was like, I'm sorry, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But I received copies of them, and I was in touch with Master Sergeant Scala, who was not able to be here today. He is our liaison officer with the Hefner District, and I said, this is suspicious, I don't know where they're from, and he agreed. He said, yeah, it's sketch. Well, he said suspicious, he didn't say sketch, that's my word. But he said that it's technically not illegal, so if you've received one, there's no legal action that you need to take. And we don't know who sent them out. We have suspicions, kind of think we know, but we have no proof, and even though it wouldn't be actionable. So if you did receive a postcard telling you that your house isn't up to code and contact the city, it is not from Windsor Hills Neighborhood Association, so just rest assured. So you're probably wondering why it seems like we move around a lot. We were at Abide and some other places. There are going to be some changes happening, but we don't do change just for the sake of doing change. We're trying to be very good stewards fiscally. And some of the places cost, and we're trying to find places that are going to be cost effective, as our revenue streams are not consistent and we can't guarantee a certain number. So if you know some places that would be willing to host and would be very low cost, that would be beneficial to us, let us know. We're not just changing times and dates and locations for the fun of it. We have a mindful reason. So if you're wondering, well, where are we going to be next month? That's the reason that you're having some movements. And speaking of potential funding revenues, so one thing I'm looking into, I've been speaking with the people at the Neighborhood Alliance, and I'm trying to figure out what are some potential fundraising that we can do with community partners to see, since we are a 501c3, what are ways that we can find money so we can continue to have neighborhood meetings. And not just meetings, since we're a neighborhood association, we would like it to be social and not just show up on a Saturday, have coffee that I may have burnt this morning, I'm sorry. And I'm not a coffee drinker, so I kind of guess at how much to put in. I know, they have directions, but directions are for those who don't believe in themselves. Sorry. I am in a mood this morning. Thank you. So definitely trying to make sure that we are mindful of the money that we have, especially we've had some big expenditures this year with the sign, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So we're also potentially, not necessarily this year, but thinking about times to change neighborhood meetings. You want to make sure that it's beneficial, that everyone in the neighborhood can come, possibly different dates, should we move it to the evening. The number of meetings we have in here, those are some things that we're talking about, and since we're a neighborhood association, we would like you all to be involved in that conversation. So showing up at the meetings is definitely the best way to make sure that you're involved and informed, and it's great to see you out here on Saturday morning. So moving on, we're going to go to the next report as I pull up, and it will be our treasurer, Jan Davis, who makes a delightful key lime pie. I don't know if you saw the recipe in the newsletter. It's actually hers. She's actually made it. I've been blessed to have it, and it is seriously delightful, so make it. It is wonderful.
It's a recipe that I got from the Dixie Crossroads in Titusville, Florida. it's so easy, it's 3 ingredients and a pie crust. Okay, treasurer's report. Beginning January the 1st, we had a balance of $9,178.84. Up until today, we've had deposit of $1,995, and that's for memberships and gifts from individuals. So we have we had cash on hand of $11,173.84. Now for expenses, the newsletter, we've spent $145.30. For hospitality, all the good food you find on the back table and the coffee. And this year we've spent so far $151.35. We had a program cost. I call it a program cost, but it's the amount of money we've had to pay for using a facility, and that's $100. And we bought new garage sale signs for $66.76. And there's a lot of younger people that live in the neighborhood now, and they like to make payments through PayPal. So we opened a PayPal account, and I took $200 out of the savings account, out of the checking account, and opened a savings account so that the PayPal funds can go into that savings account and we can keep track of it. And then I can just move those funds into the checking account as they become available. And then we bought new burglar aware signs. Have you noticed those in the neighborhood? Don't they look nice? Linda McClary took care of getting those. And the cost for those was $632.50. And then we had our big expense of someone running into the sign at Meridian and 30th. And so the total cost of repairing that was $2,308.95. And so we had to have a bricklayer for $2,000. We had to have someone weld the sign. And then we had to buy one of those big bags to dispose of the bricks that were ruined. So that's why that total is that much. So our total expenses so far this year have been $3,704.86. And as of today, we have cash on hand in our checking account of $7,468.98, plus in savings, $214.12. So we've had one PayPal into the checking account. And as of today, we have cash on hand of $7,683.10. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I'll turn it back to Tamara then.
Thank you. And now we'll have our Secretary, Cheryl Huffman.
Okay, I put a copy of April's meeting minutes on the table. They're quite long and involved. I thought they were going up on the website, but unfortunately they didn't get up at this time. But from now on, we will be posting the minutes of these meetings on the website. When they're first posted, they will be in draft because they then have to be approved at the next member meeting. So the minutes from this meeting will go up, but they will be approved in October. So I just need to ask the president to ask for approval of the April minutes.
Does everyone have a chance to read the April minutes? Because we'll ask for approval. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes? We would like to.
I know
I would like to call for an approval of the April minutes. Are there any, anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Does someone make a motion to approve? Anyone like to second? All those in favor?
Alright.
Anyone object? All right, the motion for the minutes stand is approved. We will move to our next report, is going to be the committee report from our Signs and Beautification Coordinator, Linda McClary. She was unfortunately unable to be here today. She just had surgery, so she's in recovery. She's doing well. I'm going to just read what she stated, so imagine her voice. She just appreciates everyone who is able to help, who cleaned up the damaged sign, those who assisted with the litter blitz and newsletter delivery people. That is no small task, over 700 houses. So thank you to all of those. Then a big shout out to Larry and Brenda Wooten, who helped her put up all of the brand new signs. They also helped with some of the takedown, the drilling, and they even purchased some of the materials themselves, a donation to the association. So they paid for that out of pocket. And she also wanted people to know that if you put out the neighborhood signs, like, hey, we're having a meeting this weekend, if you notice that the legs or the little stand that the sign sits on is falling apart, let her know, because she has additional for you to use for those.
You can have that.
And next, I will pass it on to Ruthie Glenn.
Hey guys, I have a couple things that since I've been back for about 2-3 months. The first order
Casey, where
was
will you be
helping them set up the PayPal, which we were just trying to find something like the most secure way that that most people have. And with PayPal, you can use Venmo, you can use your debit card, you do not have to have a PayPal account. There's 2 ways to do it. You can go to the link that's on the newsletter, and then there's also a QR code. It's like a 4-step thing. If that's something you're interested in, please reach out to me. I'm not gonna force everybody to go to my training class on how to use PayPal. But then also, we found the neighborhood group, which is different from the Facebook page, was archived. So I brought it back to life, which I know is really confusing, but so I don't have full ownership of it. So when it's asking for like the 3 questions, that's why, because the person that owns it no longer lives in the neighborhood and has deleted their Facebook, and I don't have a way to contact them. So just for now, in 2020 that group was created, and I don't know if I don't join 3 of the same groups, so I just thought it would be less confusing to just use the one that we already had. And if anybody has questions about that, but other than that, the QR code is up and going. It's been up and going. On our QR code, you can see past newsletters, past meetings, the meeting that is today is being recorded. Just anything that you guys find beneficial that's maybe not on there, please reach out to me. My number's like everywhere. I'm pretty easy to find. So that's all.
Thank you. Next, we will have Jerry Gership with membership. She stepped out just for a moment. I do know that Beverly said she may not be able to be here, and she did not have anything to report. Programming, Jesse, do you have a report?
Do you have anything you'd like to share about next meeting? Not yet. No, it's just your report. Do you have anything about the person coming next for our next report?
Our next speaker coming up, October 19th, is Estela Hernandez. She's the field representative for United States Senator James Langford. So, I'd like for all of you to be here, and if you know anybody else, since he's the United States Senator, we need more people coming in here. She is his spokesperson for Oklahoma City. Estela Hernandez. That's going to be our next speaker, October 19th.
And Jerry, I just saw she was letting someone in. She's being very kind, as she usually is, or always, not usually. All right, here you go.
We have 93 members total, and we have a lot of people that have donated extra money to, sorry, we have 93 members total, but we have a lot of you that have donated extra money. And I want to thank each of you for doing that and brought it to my door. I was so grateful. Thank you. And if you know of people that want to join, please encourage them to join because we need more. And we've got maybe 15% of the members is all. So please join. If you know others, please tell them to. And then we'll have Neighbors Night Out September 10th. So we look forward to seeing everyone there at Joanne McAtee's house from 6 to 7:30. Oh, yes, that's right. I need volunteers for Neighbors Night Out if anybody's willing to volunteer and help. I mean, is there anyone that can help serve ice cream or anything? Thank you. I'll send you a talk with you after the meeting and get your number. Thank you.
You want to get it, but I'm just showing.
So now I am going to reintroduce to you Jesse, and he is going to tell us all about our speaker today.
I'm very fortunate to be here this morning, and more particular fortunate to be here. We got Mark Woodward. We know him through the Mark Woodward here. He's been on the boots 2 to 3 times. He worked for Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, and I know they've been doing a tremendous job. They've been working all over the state. I'm going to let him tell you everything.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning and visit with you a little bit about, just some of the issues that we're facing here in Oklahoma, how times have changed, and I do a lot of presentations and training programs, and unfortunately, I'm always having to update it because we find out about a new issue that's impacting our state that I like to get out and share with the public. This is like coming home for me. I don't know if I even mentioned it when they contacted me. I grew up a little bit around this area. When I was born, I was over, my family lived at Windsor Lane, and our next door neighbors were the Brinkleys, and Brian Brinkley, many of you all know from Channel 4 Sports. He was my next door neighbor, and had many snowball fights and birthday parties with Brian Brinkley and his family. And I'll tell you how long ago this was. When we were living on Windsor Lane, how many of y'all even knew a train used to go through that neighborhood? A few of you. Boy, when you heard the train whistle, all the kids in the neighborhood all ran over to Ferguson's house and climbed on the back fence and loved watching the trains go by. He would go down to the lumber yard and I guess load up or drop off, and then it would leave. And it was the big highlight for all the kids in the neighborhood. And a lot of people would be going, "Really? There was a train that went through our neighborhood?" There sure was, and we enjoyed it. That was from when I was about 5 years old. We moved out to Surrey Hills in Yukon, so I'm still kind of from this area, and then lived in 4 acres off 42nd MacArthur for 12 years. And so this is kind of coming home for me, and I appreciate all the work that Windsor Hills has done. It's still a beautiful part of our city, and I'm glad to see that, and all the work that y'all are doing. I would ask a question. Did the guy that hit the sign, did he have insurance?
No.
Sorry about that. So isn't that always the way it happens? So I was going to say, make this guy pay. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity. Some of the challenges, that we're facing, it impacts all of us, including this area where I grew up. And, one of the biggest issues right now is marijuana. And unfortunately, our voters put this in and thinking this was going to be such a great thing for our state, and we'd be tripping over all this money, and our schools and our roads and bridges would be wonderful. And unfortunately, that hadn't been the case. That's made our jobs miserable. So many people said, well, if we legalize it, won't that make your job easier? And I'm like, no. Because when you legalize things, you just open it up for the criminal organizations to basically continue to operate, but now they don't have to hide as much. Now they're hiding in plain sight. And when we legalize marijuana, we've essentially told our children, it's now okay to get high on drugs. And that's one of the most troubling aspects. One of my favorite parts of my job is going to the schools and middle schools and high schools and talking to kids about drugs. And I gotta break down their myths before I can ever actually share with them what's happening. And so many of these kids today hear that marijuana is going to cure cancer and do all these wonderful things. And we're talking about 11, 12, 13-year-old kids who are smoking marijuana today. And I've got parents who say, they just smoke a little marijuana. What's the big deal? We all smoked a little marijuana. I have to tell these parents, they're not smoking what you may have smoked 30 years ago. The stuff they're smoking today is a science. It is so much stronger, so much more powerful, and it's just getting a hold of our kids. And that's one of the most troubling aspects is now their brains are predisposed at 13 and 14 years old to hate being sober. They like that feeling of being high, and the marijuana is getting stronger and stronger all the time. And a lot of people don't understand that. And, you know, when you're in competition with, we got 2,200 dispensaries in Oklahoma right now. By the way, that's more than, you know, Oregon, Colorado, and New Mexico, and Nevada combined, and Washington. So, you know, just within about a mile of this building, I believe there's 19 dispensaries. Yeah, and how do you compete? I mean, if those were all Chick-fil-A's, and we love our Chick-fil-A's, right? But we couldn't compete if there were 19 Chick-fil-A's within a mile of this building. Well, how do they do it? Well, you provide low-cost product and some of the most powerful product out there. Otherwise, they're going to go across the street. So there's a science of making it stronger and stronger all the time. The kids are getting bored with it and moving on to other types of drugs. And so when I have parents ask me, you know, how are we going to get our kids on the right path? I said, first of all, you got to change their attitude about drugs, because right now they're being told drugs are medicine. If it makes me feel better, it's now medicine. Well, that makes Twinkies medicine to me. I eat a Twinkie, I feel better. Oreo cookies are now medicine. I mean, if our definition of medicine in this country is it makes me feel better, then we're in a lot of trouble. I've never heard doctors say, oh, you're depressed and anxious, go smoke a cigarette. Yet we're calling marijuana medicine. Yet we're spending so much money trying to get people to stop smoking because of how unhealthy it is. So it's really troubling, the message that we're sending to our kids. And on top of that, what makes our job really busy is the criminals that have come here. You know, during the lockdown of the pandemic, Oklahoma really wasn't locked down much. And you had criminal organizations from places like China that had taken over the black market marijuana here in the United States, and they were in places like Northern California, and a lot of Chinese workers, undocumented, lost their jobs and were recruited from places like New York to California. And then during the pandemic, when they're locked down, we had people in Oklahoma recruiting on Mandarin and Fujianese and Cantonese websites saying, come to Oklahoma, we'll help get you a license, millions of dollars to be made in the marijuana businesses. And so the criminal organizations started coming here and buying land. And you'd hear these stories in rural Oklahoma of some family that's had their farm for 5 generations, and an Asian woman knocks on the door in the middle of the afternoon and said, I love your farm, would you be interested in selling? Well, of course the answer is no, this is our farm, it's in our family, I couldn't see us parting with it. Well, let me give you a dollar amount and see if you'd be interested, and it'll be 4 times what that land is worth. And suddenly the answer was, where do I sign? It became a financial lifeline for these families. If you got a $200,000, $300,000 property in Beckham County, and suddenly somebody knocks on your door and says, I'll give you $900,000 cash for it, how do you turn that down? It's hard to turn that, especially since they had already done their homework, and they knew that these families are upside down on their properties. And so they started buying up land and then moving in grow houses, and they will look legitimate on the surface. They got their fence up and their signs are up and they smile. But in the middle of the night, they're loading box trucks full of marijuana that's coming to Oklahoma City warehouses. It's repackaged into camera equipment type boxes and semi-trucks and going to New York, Flushing, New York, Brooklyn, Queens, supplying the same people they were supplying before the pandemic. They just started moving it out of Oklahoma. And it's been troubling. We don't want to be known as the Wild West of weed or the place where these criminals could get a foothold, but they did. We ended up having close to 9,500 grows at our peak in 2022, and 80% were owned by the Chinese, and 85% of those were tied to organized crime out of China. And they've partnered with the drug cartels in Mexico because it's an all-cash business. They got to make that money disappear. They move it through mobile banking apps tied to the Mexican cartels, bring that money into Mexico, bring it back into China, move it back into the U.S. as investment dollars, and suddenly it's all squeaky clean, and it all looks legitimate. And they're not doing this in California, they're doing it in beautiful parts of our state that are being, trees are being bulldozed and grow houses going up as fast as they could. And so suddenly the industry calls us and says, we need help. Because they originally wrote us out of it. They said, this is a health issue. We don't want police involved. And we're like, fine, we got bigger issues we need to be dealing with anyway. But by the end of 2022, even the industry was calling saying, you got to do something. We're bleeding to death financially. We can't compete with the black market. They're destroying our land. The farmers are calling us. They're saying they're destroying our roads. Our Our water prices are going through the roof. They're draining our farm ponds for water to grow, to water the plants. They're stealing electricity from neighbors. They're straining the power grids because of these mega marijuana farms. It was not what the voters signed up for in 2018 when they said this is all about little children and a cancer cure. Yeah, the moneymaker for our kids' schools. I always go and ask the schools, are you tripping over money in the hallway? And they're like, no, we're not. It's kind of like liquor by the drink. Remember when that was going to solve all our financial problems for our schools? And there's a little bump for a while, then the newness wears off, and then the schools are asking, we need money, where are we going to get it? So what came next? After the liquor by the drink, it was horse racing. Remember, horse racing is going to solve all our problems. And there was a little bit of a bump, and everybody was happy for a couple of years. And then the newness wears off, and the schools are screaming, we need more money. And then it was the lottery. That was going to solve all our problems. And there was a bump with the lottery money for a little bit. And then the newness wears off. I was going to say it's kind of like Krispy Kreme. Remember when Krispy Kreme first came to Oklahoma? People were lined up for 4 miles. The troopers had to do traffic control on I-240 because at Penn and I-240 there's a 4-mile line of cars waiting on a red light to go on that says we got hot donuts. Within about a year and a half, 2 years, we had I think 9 around the metro. You fast forward to today, how many do we have left? We have 1. We got it Penn and Memorial. The newness wore off. People decided my regular donuts are fine. And then we said, well, marijuana's going to be the answer. It's a $5 billion industry. Well, it's a $5 billion industry if you get in on the ground floor as an investor. That's not $5 billion going to Oklahoma schools. But that's how they presented it to the voters. They told the voters this is going to save babies' lives, and it's going to bring in millions for your roads and schools and bridges. I'm telling you, we're pretty gullible. 40, and it's not just Oklahoma, 40 states have legalized this because they swear it's going to be this money-making opportunity for our schools and cure cancer. I wish marijuana did half the medical things they said it does. Our hospitals would be half empty. MD Anderson, half of their campus can close. But it's not. And people are pinning their medical hopes on it. That's what really troubles me. When somebody says, well, I was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, what kind of marijuana should I use? They're pinning their medical hopes that marijuana is going to cure this. And so again, it's this message, and I really spend a lot of time talking to parents and kids that, first of all, in my 29 years of doing drug enforcement, I've seen one drug wreck more lives than any other drug, and it is marijuana. Not that they smoke it and die, but because of the path it puts them on. When you got kids at 13 and 14 smoking marijuana, by the time they're 17 or 18, the marijuana is boring. They're moving on pain pills out of your cabinet. They got a full-blown addiction, and by 22 or 23, they'll take anything they can get their hands on just because they're dope sick and they've got to have drugs. And it oftentimes starts out harmless, smoking weed with their friends. Or today, they're vaping. A lot of kids, 12 and 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, aren't even smoking marijuana. They're vaping it now. Almost every middle school I go to now has to have vape detectors in their bathrooms because these kids can't make it 8 hours without sneaking in there and either vaping marijuana or vaping the nicotine. And we're talking about our 13 and 14-year-olds. They're so hooked on this, and yet we treat it like a harmless drug. So, you know, if I could leave any message with you, any opportunity you have to talk to your kids about and grandkids about the dangers of drugs, do it. Because then it's leading to other problems. And the biggest threat we're dealing with in Oklahoma and really nationwide is called fentanyl. And we're not talking about pharmaceutical fentanyl like you know, burn patients, cancer patients that get transdermal patches and anesthesia. We're talking about black market fentanyl that's produced over in China. And it is incredibly cheap. It is incredibly powerful. And because we had such an opioid crisis here in the U.S., the drug cartels in Mexico said, hey, how about we counterfeit those little oxycodone pills with the cheaper fentanyl? People won't know. And they started pressing these blue 30 milligram oxycodone tablets to look just like the real thing, but they're all fentanyl. And fentanyl can be just as strong as heroin or oxycodone, but it can be 10 to 1,000 times stronger. Where just an airborne particle of fentanyl could be enough to incapacitate people if they don't do it right. That's why it's very scary for law enforcement. And ER, we do a lot of training. I just spent a week doing training for our OG&E workers, our gas crews. People who go to houses or apartments, hotels for unrelated reasons. You get something on your hands and you don't realize it's on there. You scratch your nose like we do a million times a day, and then you're breathing these inborn particles from fentanyl that can be left on a carpet, on a coffee table, or anywhere else. And suddenly it feels like there's an elephant on your chest, and somebody's having to hit you with Narcan or naloxone to bring you back from an overdose, and you don't even know how you got it. It's because it doesn't take very much fentanyl for any one of us to be incapacitated, especially our first responders, our ER nurses, fire departments that are showing up doing an overdose and they're working on a patient, they don't realize they've got it on them. When we do traffic stops, the days of just finding a bag of white powder and picking it up and testing it on the trunk of the car are over. We have to assume everything is now fentanyl, and if it is, it could be potentially deadly just by inhaling a small amount because of just how strong it is. But it's very cheap. I mean, one of those little pills, it's about 7/100ths of a penny to make, and they sell for $2 on the streets. And so the cartels from China and Mexico are making billions of dollars off of our U.S. addiction to pain pills. And now it's not even just that. They're now counterfeiting Xanax, they're counterfeiting ecstasy tablets, and that's where it could impact even our kids, because a lot of kids might be at a party and they may never use heroin or other drugs, but somebody may have like an ecstasy tablet, a club drug that 17, 18-year-old kids have had before, not realizing, well, this one's fentanyl, and then the kid ends up overdosing at a party. Or even at the high schools. We really stressed our schools to always have Narcan on hand. Narcan is a little aerosol thing you can, like nose spray, you can bring somebody back from an overdose of an opiate if you get to them in time. And sometimes you only have about a 6-minute window. That's why we tell schools you need to keep it around. You may not have time to call 911 if you find a kid passed out in your middle school bathroom stall. By the time that ambulance gets there, I mean, it could be 10 minutes, and you don't have that kind of window. So we really, we're so grateful for Narcan and naloxone because we've probably saved hundreds of thousands of lives over the last 10 years since naloxone's been made available. But the concerning thing is the drug cartels are starting to add chemicals to fentanyl that makes naloxone ineffective. One of them is something called xylazine. Now, if you have animals, horses, you work on a ranch, you may know what xylazine is. It's an animal tranquilizer. It's used to sedate a horse when you're going to work on their teeth. But this is black market xylazine that comes from China. Everything's coming from China. You see the pattern. It goes to the cartels in Mexico. The cartels press xylazine into these pills. As a sedative, it helps the people who are drug addicts ease some of their very painful, horrible withdrawals. And so now that a lot of the drug addicts on the street, they want fentanyl that has xylazine in it. Because now they get their opiate addiction, but now the xylazine can sedate them and try to take some of that horrible pain away. But the problem is now, if we or an ambulance, EMT, a paramedic, fire department finds somebody overdosing, and that pill has mostly xylazine and very little fentanyl, Narcan's not going to work. And so that's very troubling. That's been our safety net for 10 years, is if somebody's overdosing, hit them with Narcan. And that's still effective if it's truly just an opioid. But we're seeing more and more of these opiate drugs, like fentanyl, heroin, being cut with things like xylazine that does not work. Narcan does not work. So that is very, very concerning that we're getting into a naloxone-resistant bunch of drugs hitting our streets. So very, very troubling. But a lot of these people, I'll tell you, when you talk to an opioid addict, many of them started out by accident, literally an accident, car accident, or blew out there and playing basketball. And maybe the hospital put them on pain pills. And for some people, they don't become addicted. There's a lot of people who have pain pills and they hurt their knee and they never become an addict. But some people, they do. And over time, it's not 4 or 5 pills a day for the pain in their knee or back. Now it's 40 to 50 pills a day. And their doctor's not going to prescribe that much, so they go out onto the streets to start buying Oxy on the streets. And that's why the cartels started capitalizing off of our addiction by making their own Oxy and moving it on the streets, but it contains fentanyl. And so if you run across something, I can't stress enough, don't touch it. You have to assume any type of drug or pill or powder may have fentanyl in it. And so if you find something, don't pick it up, throw it away on your own. If you do, make sure you're wearing gloves and things like that. But be very, very careful around anything you might find in your yard or at a park. Your first instinct, don't pick it up. I don't want kids to get it. Yeah, but you pick it up. Don't pick it up with your bare hands because you can and then wash your hands really good, because you're probably not gonna ever get exposed to fentanyl or other drugs through a cut or through absorption in your skin, but you can get those particles that you inhale from your hands. Another thing that you can do, doing your part, is that these people who are addicted to pain pills, the number one place they get it is out of medicine cabinets. And we're all guilty of this. Maybe you get 20 pain pills for back surgery and you only use 10. Well, you've got 10 pain pills sitting in the back of your cabinet that you forget about. And then suddenly your grandson or his friends come over, or your nephew, and he says, oh, can I borrow your bathroom? Well, he doesn't really need to use your bathroom. He's hooked on pills, and he's going through your medicine cabinets and your nightstand drawers and your purse. You know, most of us will never have cocaine or meth or heroin in our house, but we can have some of the most deadliest drugs on the planet, like oxycodone, hydrocodone, Percocet, Percodan, and we leave them in unlocked places in our bathroom or nightstands. Safeguard the prescription drugs you have in your house. I don't want you all to live with the guilt of knowing that maybe your grandson or nephew overdosed and died from something you should have thrown away 6 months ago because you don't need it anymore. So get rid of it. And if you do need it, safeguard it. Keep it in a safe place and a hidden place. Lock it up if you have to. At the very least, don't keep it where somebody would traditionally look for it, like in a nightstand drawer or a medicine cabinet. You know, keep it in some places out of sight.
How should you safely dispose of it?
Great question. First of all, you could do it at home. But before I say that, we've got 204 drug disposal boxes in law enforcement lobbies. So that's also something you could do. You could bag up any of your medicine, not inhalers and not liquids and not needles, but any pills, which people aren't stealing that stuff anyway, they want pills and capsules. Bag up that medicine and go by one of your local police stations, and in the lobby should be a white mailbox. There are boxes, and we're the only ones with the keys, even the police department. But Bethany has one, War Acres has a box, the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department has a box, the Village Police Department, Nichols Hills Police Department, Yukon certainly, anybody that's a major and even a small police department has it. But if you don't have the ability to just bag this stuff up and take it to a police department, or your son or daughter could do that for you. But if you want to just dispose of it at home, all you have to do is put it in a sealed container. That's what we tell people. Like if you've got a plastic, old coffee container, or a laundry soap, any type of container that's plastic that has a lid, you could just put the pills in there. You might even add a little water, shake it up, and now you're making it a nasty paste. But even you don't really have to do that. And then just put it in your household trash, because typically your neighboring kids are not going through your trash looking for pills. They're going to come up with an excuse to go into your house, ask to borrow your bathroom, and that's where your nephew or your grandkids are going to steal your pills. So you could throw them away in your own trash, but if you're worried about that, you can find one of those disposal boxes in any police department lobby. And so that's where you can do your part, because again, I talk to too many families who say, you know what, our son, or our son's best friend, or our nephew overdosed and died, and it wasn't until later we found out he died from stuff that he was taking out of our cabinet. And so I don't want y'all to live with that type of guilt, and so I don't want you to be one of those stories. Yes?
I think a lot of pharmacies also have.
They do, that's correct. Some of your pharmacies will take them back as well. Yes?
And please don't flush them.
No, the police do not have access to them. We're the only ones that have, because those are our
I mean, like if I had it
Oh,
on my
for
house,
you? Yes,
you
yes.
flush it on your toilet.
Yeah, our water tables are already horribly contaminated with drugs as it is. So yeah, we don't recommend flushing. Yeah, we don't recommend it. And the cool thing that we do when people ask, well, what do you do with them? Covanta Energy up in Tulsa that destroys the city of Tulsa's trash, they don't incinerate it. They heat it up to the point where steam basically incinerates it into steam energy, and then they shoot that energy, that steam, across the street. It powers the Holly Petroleum Company. So they take garbage and turn it into clean energy, which is cool. They heard about our program, and they said, we'd love to destroy your pills for free. Because they just thought it was such a neat idea. And so when we get about 3,000 pounds, we put it on a trailer, and we drive it up to Tulsa, and Covanta Energy destroys your drugs and mine for free. And they do it with incineration, so they're not hurting the environment, and it's turning it into clean energy. So it's really a cool win-win thing. So that's a neat idea. But again, same with needles. If you got liquids, you got inhalers, anything that you don't want and you want to get rid of it yourself, just put it in a sealed container and put it out with your household trash. But don't flush it. Definitely don't flush it, and don't leave it around thinking I might need it later, because that's one of the worst. And if you do, There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've got pills that I only take when needed, but you know, you don't leave them where teenagers can find them. And you may think, well, I don't have anything teenagers want. I just have blood pressure and heart pills. Kids will take any pill to school and tell their friends it's oxycodone or something good, and then they may trade it for a bag of marijuana. We had 8 kids at John Marshall High School and 4 kids at Putnam City North High School get very sick from overdosing from heart pills. I can promise you their friends told them it was like Xanax or something good, like pain pills. They didn't say, hey, this is my grandma's heart pills. So they will trade medicine that they steal from your cabinets, even if it's not something you get high from. And the kids aren't going to tell the police or someone going, hey, I thought I was buying an Oxy and I ended up getting grandma's stool softeners. That really doesn't even require a lecture right there. That's just, that'll teach that kid not to steal other people's medicine. So those are little things that you can do on your own. But you know, we're facing a lot of challenges, but things you can do yourself, as I said, don't leave the drugs laying around. When you get the opportunity to talk to your kids, there may be some medical benefits about marijuana, but it's like prescription drugs. You can't talk about the benefits of prescription painkillers without talking about how deadly they are. And it's the same with marijuana. If you've got a teenager who believes marijuana is the greatest drug ever, you know, there might be opportunities to say, well, yeah, but anything can be dangerous and addictive. And so use those opportunities, because you may be the only anti-drug message your kids or grandkids ever hear. Because I can promise you, TV and everything, our culture is just bombarding them that marijuana cures all your problems and it's the greatest drug ever. And like I said, I wish it did half the things they say with it. Most importantly, though, I view that if there's something going on that you're kind of questioning, or you're going, hey, there's a suspicious house or things like that, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Bureau of Narcotics. You can go to our Facebook page, and you can even send a private message on Facebook. Those come to my desk. We will do our best to look at every one of them. I'll tell you, unfortunately, voters, I keep blaming voters. But Oklahoma voters a few years ago made most low-level drug crimes a misdemeanor, therefore the police don't even mess with them. So if you do call the police and say, hey, I think they're selling drugs next door, they're probably going to go, okay, we'll see what we can do. They're not going to waste their time because the district attorney's not going to waste his time with a misdemeanor. And that's because the voters did that. And so, unfortunately, that doesn't mean call the police. I mean, you need to call. You need to keep calling and be persistent. Because over time, maybe those neighbors will get tired of the police coming by there, driving by. But if you think if you call the police because there's a suspected drug house in your neighborhood and police are going to drop everything to go there, they're probably not. Sorry. But we will at least take a look at it. We'll run the address, and if those people are already on our radar or they've got outstanding warrants, then we can go after them. Anyway, it's troubling that unfortunately we've made a lot of these misdemeanors, and so these people aren't going to jail anyway. They're just, most of them don't even pay a fine. They just drop the charges if the charges are ever filed, because there's too many bigger criminals that they've got to spend their resources on as district attorneys and as our penitentiaries and incarceration costs. So those are the things that we're dealing with right now. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you all might have about some of the things maybe you're seeing or hearing.
We have time for 3 questions. So he's been very gracious, so we'd like to thank him before.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you. So we have time for 3.
Okay.
Okay, you mentioned 9,000 or some grow houses that were shut down. How many people went to prison for that, and for how long?
We at our peak in 2022, we were at 9,400 grows. We're down to about 3,000 now. Not all of those 6,400 we've shut down were because people went to jail. Some of them were shut down because when they applied to renew their license, we figured out that they obtained their license by fraud. If our voters did anything right, they did say that to have a marijuana business, 75% of your ownership has to be an Oklahoman who's been here 2 years. So we had these straw owners. Before the Chinese or others would come here, you would have somebody approach somebody like you and say, hey, how would you like to make $2,000 a month? What do I have to do? Well, just sign this piece of paper that says you own a marijuana farm in Enid. Yeah. So Bob Smith signs his name, and Bob Smith is on we literally had a secretary in a law office. She was on 299 licenses as the quote-unquote owner. So as we have figured out that they're using fraud, a lot of those licenses are just not being renewed. And then we are tying them to organized crime. And eventually, if we shut down one group and arrest 4 people, sometimes all those 4 people are technically responsible for running 400 to 800 farms. So the numbers don't, if we're down 6,400 farms, doesn't mean 6,400 people went to jail. Sometimes one large group is running hundreds of farms, and those people have been indicted. We've got 3 different law firms that have been indicted for helping these criminal groups get an Oklahoma license. Some of them have been very publicly publicized, and they're going to federal trial too. So they're not going to get just as hand slapped. These lawyers are going to go to jail. And keep in mind that too, some of the charges we're filing are linked to homicides to the farm. It's not just that they couldn't follow our marijuana laws. These organized crimes, some of y'all may have seen in November 2022, there was a quadruple homicide in Lacey, Oklahoma. One Chinese assassin was sent to the farm to either collect the money or kill everybody, and he ended up killing 4 people on that farm. Organized crime is responsible for human trafficking, labor trafficking, so we're not only going after them for the fraudulent licenses and illegal growing for the black market, but also other violent crimes, and a lot of those are federally being prosecuted. So over the next couple of years, you're going to see a whole lot of people either pleading guilty or going to trial, to answer your question. There will be a lot of people. But the good news is this: we have flipped the script. 2 years ago, Oklahoma was the Wild West, and we were looked at as the national talk shows were making jokes about how bad it was. Now the word on the streets is worldwide, don't go to Oklahoma, because the Bureau of Narcotics doesn't blame us. And we're not going to blame us. They are literally getting out of here in the middle of the night. Second question? Oh, you had your hand up over here next, didn't you?
Can you tell us about Triad?
The Triads is just one of those organized crimes out of China that are
Oh,
heavily
no, I mean the
involved.
one that meets at the Shriner place.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think that's the criminal
Teaches older
organization.
people.
The Triads are, those groups are typically local police, so we don't have
Oh,
involvement
okay.
in some of those, but I know what groups you're talking about. Yes, many cities have those.
You can
and they're-
learn a lot
they're
about
wonderful.
going
Yes,
there.
It's
They
partnering
meet
the
the Shriners
citizens.
right
with
up
the
here on
police. Yes.
36.
Yeah, I thought you meant the Chinese Triads.
No, I didn't.
I could spend 2 hours talking about the Chinese Triads in Oklahoma.
They're more exciting.
Right.
Is there a site to go to where you can find legalized grow farms?
There are, every licensed marijuana business is listed both on the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority's website and ours. Here's the problem is, just because they're licensed legally doesn't mean they're criminal. In fact, most of the criminal Chinese groups, and I'm not picking on the Chinese, it's just they own about 80% of the illegal farms. There's some that are tied to organized crime out of Mexico, Armenia, Russia. We just hit one that was tied to organized crime out of Italy. It was an Italian mafia that was running a farm, but 80% are Chinese. Their rule number 1 is get a license. Get your fence up, do everything right, and be nice. And so just because you find it's like, say you've got a farm in Okemah, Oklahoma, and you want to know if the neighbors are criminals, they're going to be listed as a legal licensed grow. Now you got to prove that what they're doing in the middle of the night is illegal, and that's where we come in. Because now we got to prove that everything coming off that farm is going to a warehouse in Oklahoma City, getting repackaged as camera equipment, and being shipped to Brooklyn, New York in the middle of the night. And so just because you see a farm listed on that website doesn't mean anything, sadly. Because they want to appear legitimate.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm sorry, we're gonna do the presentation, just a moment, sorry, while we still have, Mr. Woodward here, yes.
Oh, no, it's not like Jesse presents.
Mark, this is a certificate of appreciation for the Woodland Hill Neighborhood Association, and we appreciate you being our guest speaker
thank you
here.
so much.
And this is for a gift from us to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
We do have an open section, so I'll allow you to share during, or it's open for sharing, so we'll get there. We have to do our new business, and so, moving
If you have to
on
go,
next,
you're
we're
free to
going to
go.
have a bylaws update from Lori Wickenkamp.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Our current bylaws have served WHNA for decades, but times change, attitudes change, and so do expectations. The board realized that it was time for new bylaws that would reflect a spirit of cooperation and respect, so that WHNA can move forward as a vibrant, interconnected community. This spring, an ad hoc committee was formed consisting of Lyndon Clary, Harry Black, and me. The committee worked with the Neighborhood Alliance to rewrite our bylaws. A draft has now been completed, and will be going into to the board for further editing and approval. In order to become effective and official, the new bylaws must receive a majority vote at the December meeting. If all goes as planned, we will have copies of the proposed bylaws at the October membership meeting, and they will be posted on our WHNA Facebook page.
Thank you. All right, so the next is, it was already touched on in the treasurer's report that we have the new neighborhood signs that you see. What was the rationale behind that? I think whenever we do things, especially spend money, it helps let people know. Some neighborhood signs were missing. There were poles that were there. There was no sign. Many signs were faded, some were crooked. So the decision was made so that we could have a uniform look. And also, if you have a nice sign that shows that people are there, it kind of helps deter. So the fact that we actually have our neighborhood watch signs that look nice and new means it seems as if we have a very active patrol. So that was the reason. We ordered 25. I believe 21 or 22 have been placed. The reason we haven't placed all of them, some poles were missing in areas. So there's going to be a setup for those, and that's the reason that we're going to, if we see more money spent on signs, it's not the signs, it's the poles. So I just wanted to give you all the update there. The newsletter that you all see that goes out, it is printed for us for free. The only hitch that we have now is we had a lovely editor and graphic designer who had to resign. She was also doing this wonderful service for free, and it was starting to cut into her own professional time. So if you yourself have skills, if you know someone who has graphic design or editorial skills and they would like to donate their time and services, we would love to be in touch with them. So again, keep that in mind. The elections are coming up in December, but now is the time to be mindful. If you are interested in doing this lovely job that I'm doing, feel free. I would not be offended if somebody ran for president. I assure you I would probably write your name on the ballot myself. Full disclosure. I kind of came into this by a series of unfortunate events, but it's all good. But seriously, if you're interested in running for a position, I'm asking that you all make a disclosure in October so we can know, just think about it. You can introduce yourself. If you want to come to a board meeting to see what we do, talk to one of us about our positions, feel free. We would definitely love for people to be involved and be more active. That's the goal. I'll say this is what we're left because now is the open time. I would like to open the floor. If someone has a comment, a question, or a concern, I'd like to limit this to about 5 minutes because the whole point of having a neighborhood association is neighbors having input. I'm a big believer in people talking in meetings about things that really are important to them so we can hear the voices of many. Something that you would like to see happen, a question. Does anyone have anything?
Yeah, I understand that we had to pay.
Sorry, I'm gonna all come over. I know you're filming it so people can hear.
I understand we had to pay the signing that, but do we have to all that reinstitute the insurance bill and we have to move forward?
That is a great question, and we haven't fully decided. So in case you couldn't hear, the question was, are we going to insure the signs again? I'm not sure when the insurance lapsed or what happened there, but it was a surprise when the sign is hit on a lovely morning. We're like, oh, well, this is fun. We have been in discussion, but we haven't made a solid decision yet. But if we, or when we do, we will definitely let you know. Because this is one of the concerns, and especially the fact that when you see your revenue dwindle so rapidly and it's not coming in at the same rate, it made us a little squeamish, but it was a big pile of bricks. And thankfully, the woman who lived there was an elderly woman who lived alone, so thankfully she wasn't hurt. And she didn't hear it, she didn't see anything, but luckily she was fine. So that is something that we do need to talk about seriously.
I hope they will consider it because Meridian is such a traffic street.
Yes, and especially where it was hit. So it's hit at Northwest 30th and Meridian, which I usually turn out there all the time. It's the Wild West of just every day. Take your life in your hands and turn right or left, it doesn't matter. But thank you for that question. Any other questions?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I may not need this. Hi, I'm Ben Williams, longtime neighbor of Windsor Hills. Lived at 29th and Sterling. Lord, you know me.
I used to be 6 feet tall, handsome. Now look at me. I met Linda McCurdy. McCurdy. Linda and I have been patrolling together, and you won't live until you patrol with Linda McCurdy. She's already been mentioned today, having surgery on her left shoulder. She's okay. She asked me to bring to the meeting the question about air leaf blowers. Leaf blowers are all over the neighborhood, and she says, asked me to get this union, the neighborhood association, how to control leaf blowers from blowing trash out into the street. And I told her I would, but I don't know how we're gonna handle that. Anyway, I've done my due, and I'll tell Linda what I did.
I'll pass it on. I guess just be mindful, just please be a grown-up and act like you have sense, don't ruin your trash out in people's faces. We had another question. Oh, sorry, we had this gentleman.
Hey, tell
Oh, excuse me, yes.
I think I heard that there's 900 people, no, 90 people that are paying the $15.
Well, I got 2 more today, so 90,000.
But there's 700 addresses. Is anything being considered to increase membership?
Jerry, would you like to? I don't do that to pivot, and I'm so sorry, Ruby. Yeah. People, they work. Jerry's been doing an incredible job, and I mean that most sincerely. Seriously. Yes. I'm going to pivot for a minute, because the one thing that I think that is very important, we have a lot of people on the board who've been working incredibly hard behind the scenes, and when I tell you they hustle. Like, they are really doing the most on their time, and I couldn't have worked with a better group of people. They're fantastic. So they are working, like they're literally going door to door, they are stuffing, they're talking to their neighbors. So we're definitely trying to increase awareness, and some of the things we want to do for membership is we have to make it seem relevant, like why would I join a neighborhood association? I'm gonna be real without being too negative. There are a lot of issues that had gone back a few years. It's not only any one person, one group of people. There had just been little things that have been happening along the way, like any organization, company, etc., and so forth. And so the whole goal is to making sure we have stability. We're gonna be doing bylaws, we've got neighborhood signs. We have to make it seem like we're something worth joining, and that's what we're kind of rebuilding. So when we get ourselves solid and we show up consistently, we want to do more social events, so we're not just having meetings, but we're actually a neighborhood association. So it's like hosting things like Neighbors Night Out, which again, Jerry's been working incredibly hard. She's got donations. She's got some really great things that are going to happen that night. So when we show up and be consistent, we're hoping that that will put a good vibe up. So if people are like, hey, my neighbor went and they had a great time, or they heard about it. So we're mindful and we're aware, and also that's why we don't have money to do really cool things, because someone's like, well, we heard that the neighborhood over there had a bounce house at theirs, or they could afford steak. It's like, well, we had ice cream because that was in our budget. So hopefully, no, people, I know we would like to do better things, but we are really trying to improve the infrastructure and then make sure that we have a very solid organization that people want to join. So it's not a solid answer, but we are mindful and we're definitely trying. I'm sorry, just Jan, and we'll go there, and then we'll do it.
I wanted to let everybody know that I had 6 raccoons in my front yard. And I called someplace at the zoo, and he should come and trap them, I guess, but he said to really look at the stuff at a renter house and make sure that they're not damaged, because there are raccoons in the neighborhood and they could be trying to get in your attic.
They come right in the bedroom.
that we can do when there's cars parked out in the street on both sides. I don't think a fire truck can get through in an emergency. And I know I read that where, you know, if you're not supposed to, what are they gonna do about it?
So unfortunately, we've had conversations, I know some people individually had them, I've had some with the Action Line. There's not much. It's frustrating in some places it is illegal. I know, where I live, on North 34th Street, there used to be people literally parking at the stop sign. So if I'm trying to turn right onto Ann Arbor, I was like, I literally can't see, this is a hazard. So unfortunately, there's not much, and especially since we don't have any sort of authority, we can keep being mindful, calling Action Line. If you have a semi-decent report, asking your neighbor, hey, do you guys really have to park all 18 F-150s right there every day? But I don't want to say we're powerless, but there's not much. We've been in communication with several people.
Those people that do that don't pay their dues.
Probably not. So if you do know someone, like, hey, would you like to join? Also, we'll have you here. Would you mind? But we have been mindful. The main thing is they've always advised us to contact the Action Line, especially if it becomes a hazard. I know there's an area not far from where I live too. I could see the trash trucks struggling to get down on a regular basis because, yeah, they're just, and not even next to the curb. They were parked like almost a foot away. It's like, if you're going to park by the curb, at least make sure it's by the curb.
And as long as they're not legal, they.
Someone over there.
We have had someone from Action Line come and talk at meetings before, and the one thing that they really tell us is don't confront. Never confront a neighbor that you are having an issue with. It can be very dangerous. Use the avenues that are available to us, which is submitting complaints to Action Line. The more people who complain, the more they listen. And our little area where I live, kind of a T section at Eaton at 32nd Place, we did get an issue addressed, but we had to do it through Action Line and the health department, and we just kept at it. We took pictures, we submitted complaints in writing, bills were emailed, you can call in, there's a number. You just have to keep on top of it. It doesn't do any good to just admire the problem by talking about it in this meeting. You have to do something constructive. But that doesn't mean talking to the people that you have an issue with. Never do that, because it can be very dangerous.
Thank you. Carla.
Well, I was thinking about the lack of funds and why with that many houses, people won't turn in $15 a year. That just seems stupid.
We've wondered that too.
Yeah.
Many conversations.
Could we as the members that are paying go up? Wouldn't that help if it was 30
on cars that they can park out on the street. That's the reason they haven't got there.
Well, I'm not talking about that. There are a lot of homes that have multiple families living in them. Not in our neighborhood, but I have a son that has both sons and their mates living with them. And where they live, it's on the south side, but all those streets are just lined with cars. People have more cars, but they have more people in each home. That's part of it.
And that's why we did PayPal.
Yeah, we're trying to make it more accessible. I know sometimes I always forget to bring a checkbook, so having PayPal, having easier options, but it's frustrating. We've also had some pushback trying to just have the dues raised slightly, not an exorbitant amount that people can't afford, but just to go, there's been pushback. Some very negative comments. Unfortunately, that's when I say the board works hard. Many people have gotten just nasty complaints over basic things, and they still volunteer and show up. It's incredible. I mean, they are snakes, literally. So we are trying, we're very mindful. These are many of the same problems and things that we've noticed. We have discussions when we have our meetings. We don't have solutions, but we are actively trying to combat these things because we want to see the health of this organization continue. We're mindful and we're pushing forward. So with that, we're going to gracefully move on, or we're going to attempt to. We're going to do the announcement. So again, please come to Neighbors Night Out. It's fun. I don't know all the good things that are going to bring friends, bring family, bring your neighbors. It will be from 6 to 7:30. And our next meeting is going to be Saturday, October 19th. Again, the location is to be determined, so definitely look out for the Facebook pages and the newsletter. We will have that information there. And then we are going to do door prizes. So I'm going to use this time to do my hospitality update, and for the reason is, you probably noticed there used to be a lot of door prizes. Since I'm also a hospitality coordinator, I decided to be a bit more mindful with where we spend our money. So I've reduced the amount that we spend in the morning and also the door prize. There used to be 8, now there's 4, still $10, but so it's not going to be a place to get your Christmas shopping done or your birthday shopping when you come, but we're still going to try to entice you, it just won't be as many. So Jesse is going to be my trustee assistant, and I'll actually let him pick.
Give me one. Okay, 182.
182. 182.
182. Going once?
And today, all of the prizes are from the Icon Cinema, the VIP seating. It's
Third
everybody's
time you
seating.
lost out.
Alright. So, no, 182. Or, oh,
193.
193. Yay, it's time. You can say that Beetlejuice is coming out soon, or Beetlejuice, I should say.
Uh, 185.
185. Yay! Alright. A lot of fantastic movies, refillable popcorn, a place to chill. I'm not paid to do this, it's just a nice theater, actually.
Oh, this theater?
Yes, Icon, that's for the Icon,
This is what? 196.
196. Last one. And last but certainly not least,
179.
179. Yay! There you go. All right, they're each worth $10 to the Icon Cinema. With that, it has been lovely seeing you all. Please, there are delightful goodies. I had a gingerbread man. They're really good, so grab a cookie or 10 on the way out because I don't want to take all this home. No shade, it's just I'm a nibbler. I don't need any extra snacks. So it's been lovely seeing you all, and with that, this meeting